Lightfall is upon us. The year is coming to a close, which means seasonal activities will be departing soon. And with it, everything in the H.E.L.M, which means it's pretty likely that all of the weapons that came with each season will also be going away. We don't know for certain what Bungie is going to do with all these weapons and patterns, but in today's video I would like to highlight some of the weapons I think you should go get the pattern for, just in case they become completely inaccessible. Like, why gamble? You know what I mean? Before we begin, I have a few notes. Number one, if you can get all of the weapon patterns, you should do that. There's no harm in it. But not everyone is going to be able to do that, hence this video. But the more you can get, the better. Number two, the suggestions I'm going to be making are based on how the game is right now. I cannot account for future changes because I don't know what they are. I am not liable for any guns not earned right now that turn into meta weapons in the Lightfall era of the game because I rated them poorly in this video. I just don't know what's going to happen. Number three, getting a top tier roll of a weapon on this list is going to be almost as good as getting the pattern. If you can't manage to get the pattern, but you do have a god roll of a gun, keep it. Just because it's craftable does not mean you need to craft it if you have a good one. And number four, I'm not going to be going over any specific perk roll suggestions in this video unless there's only like one or two. If you want more specific advice on perk rolls, check the description for my god roll weapon videos, if I happened to make one. Let's start with Season 16. If you're a PvE player, if there is one weapon I think you should grind out, I'm pretty torn between Thoughtless and Explosive Personality. Thoughtless is a pure copium pick. It is my pick because I believe Bungie may finally do something to snipers that will make them relevant again in endgame PvE with Lightfall or the months to come. It is a stasis sniper, so it works well with any sort of stasis linear fusion play because of Font of Might, and because it can get some very strong boss damage perks. Explosive Personality, on the other hand, feels like a more guaranteed pick if we're basing things on how they are today. Wave frame grenade launchers are quite viable right now. I'm using the Vow of the Disciple one a lot. Are the perks on this super omega insane? Not really, but are they pretty good? Yes. Is this the only solar wave frame grenade launcher in the game right now? Also yes, with the only other solar special GL being Empty Vessel. If you don't think you're going to be doing much endgame PvE stuff in the near future, this is probably a more guaranteed pick. In terms of all of the other weapons, I would put Under Your Skin, Sweet Sorrow, and Peace of Mind all pretty equal in PvE depending on your preferences. Under Your Skin maybe goes a bit higher because it's a Void Bow, which has some more endgame potential than the other two weapons. Peace of Mind definitely goes higher if your focus is PvP. Recurrent Impact is probably lowest priority because it's a high RPM machine gun, and even though some newer high RPM machine guns have some potential, I'm a little skeptical of this one. If you're a heavy stasis user though, maybe. Moving to Season 17, for endgame raiders, if there is one thing to get, it is Bump in the Night. Bump in the Night is a pick thanks to Gjallarhorn, and it being a stasis weapon, again having synergy with Font of Might since stasis wells are very easy to generate with Well of Radiance and the proper mod. Not only that, but it has a lot of viable perks if you don't go the boss damage route, field prep for more ammo and faster reloads, demo for instant grenade reloads, and tracking for tracking. If you do go for boss damage, you're looking at demo and chill clip or frenzy, depending on if anyone else in your team is already using chill clip because of how slowing and freezing targets work. You don't want multiple people doing that, you just want one. It's a great burst damage option for when rockets are a good pick, which right now they are. If you're not an endgame raider and you're just looking for something good for a little bit of everything, Callus Mini Tool is the play here. Callus Mini Tool is a top tier primary option. It is a workhorse weapon, but it basically only has one perk in the second column that is usable, and that is Incandescent. So if you get a Callus Mini Tool with Incandescent and a decent first perk, which in this case is Threat Detector or Unrelenting, can't believe I'm saying this, maybe Grave Robber, keep that weapon and then just skip the pattern. If I had to organize the weapons from most to least desired, opulent weapons are all very strong PvP choices, with Mini Tool being a great PvE weapon. If you don't participate in PvP that often though, I think they're pretty free to skip. In terms of Haunted, nothing's really grabbing me in particular besides Bump in the Night for burst damage specifically. The Trace Rifle's pretty fine. Trace Rifle's still pretty strong choices. The Scout is very replaceable. The Glaive is a Glaive, so that's going to be a very easy decision for most people. The Auto Rifle is an Auto Rifle, and the Shotgun... Shotgun would probably be my second place for Haunted weapons, as it has some level of PvE and PvP viability. This or the Trace Rifle. Season 18 weapons. If I have to pick one thing, again, it depends. Linear fusions are the meta right now for the most part, which leans me towards Sail Spy. But Bungie has said that they're looking to create a new meta in Lightfall, so I am hesitant to suggest it, even if I think linears will still be good. The only other arc linear fusion is Storm Chaser, which is from Duality, but is a bit harder to use because of the burst fire unless you have a divinity. The only reason to use an arc linear fusion in particular is for Font of Might related things, in case arc builds become the meta in endgame raiding or something like that. That hasn't happened though. Most people are still using solar and stasis linear fusions because of Font of Might and elemental well generation for it. No Reprieve is a pick for the same reason any potential stasis weapon has been a pick, in case it becomes a good endgame damage option, and slug shotguns always have some level of potential. So, both of my main picks are not fully guaranteed to be viable in future endgame content, but rather are hopeful plays that they do end up being good in the future. Non-raiders will likely want the sidearm or the scout depending on preference, specifically for Voltshot, as Voltshot is an absolutely bonkers perk. However, these guns have similar rules that Callus Minitool does. Voltshot is the perk to get on these guns, and if you manage to get a good Voltshot weapon, either the scout, the sidearm, or both, the priority to get a crafting pattern for them is much lower. The SMG and the machine gun are pretty low on my priority list because I just don't think they're that important for PvE at all. Finally, Season 19. I think the most guaranteed weapon I can suggest is the Ikelos SMG with Voltshot. Certified banger unless Voltshot gets hit with a massive nerf. Mark it, stamp it, I don't care, banger gun unless Voltshot gets nerfed. Pretty much a guarantee. But again, this gun basically only has one perk setup that I think is worth keeping, and it is Feeding Frenzy and Voltshot. So if you snag that, then you're looking good, and you can do something else. In terms of picks that are dependent on how Bungie tunes things in the future, we have some options. If I have to pick one for endgame raiders right now, I want to say Fire and Forget. But again, we know that Bungie has said that they want to potentially bring a new meta going into Lightfall, so there is no guarantee that Fire and Forget ends up being a top tier selection, and you need a giant crit spot or divinity to make this work, since the recoil on this gun is pretty wild. Retrofit Escapade is the first 900 RPM machine gun I'm actually interested in, solely because of any potential meta shifts in Lightfall where we maybe see a machine gun meta. I think the odds of that are low. I think Bungie wants machine guns to be more about strong ad clear, but I could be totally wrong on that, and or the math works out in the machine gun's favor, and it just happens to be the best. Retrofit also has good perks to make it capable of being a boss damage option with fourth times and like target lock or one of the various damage perks, especially if you're doing any sort of Gerfalcon stuff as a hunter. The Ikelos Sniper is another maybe if Bungie does a thing to snipers pick, as it is capable of a boss damage perk setup. Most of the other items were primary weapons, which I tend to not usually pressure too much because good primary weapons are a dime a dozen nowadays and you really need to stand out, or they were special weapons that still don't really have that much footing in the game. Of course, we also have Deepstone and Vow the Disciple crafted weapons, but those aren't going away, which is why I did not include them. However, to refresh your memory for Vow the Disciple, Cataclysmic should have been first on your list, but again, linear fusions, we don't know. I think they'll still be good, but maybe not as dominant, we'll see. Otherwise, Forbearance is a fantastic crafted option to focus on with Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction, and while Deliverance has been a personal favorite, I don't even have a crafted one, I use an Adept one. It is one of the stronger options in the kinetic slot nowadays when it comes to special ammo weapons. Oh yeah, Duality too, that's a thing. It's not going away either, so yeah. Epicurean, I don't think is super urgent, but Fixed Odds is quite a beast if you can manage to get the pattern. There's also King's Fall, but just check the video on that. It's pretty recent. Also, it's not going away, so no urgency. Per usual, if you think I should have suggested a certain weapon more than others, let your peers know, but I was trying to keep this list realistic, as not everyone is going to have the time or patience to grind even half of these patterns. If you want stuff that I believe is more likely to be good after Lightfall, basically no matter what, I would say the Ikelos SMG, Callus Mini Tool, Bump in the Night, and Explosive Personality. If you want to gamble on stuff that might be good in the future, you got stuff like Thoughtless, Ikelos Sniper, No Reprieve, Retrofit Escapade, maybe Sail Spy. If you have all of these, then I think you're pretty set for the most part. That's all from me. I'm going to have a Lightfall prep guide sometime in the near future. I just wanted to get this out early so that people had time to go grind the patterns. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next year.